Okay, so this is not the best view of the filter in the world, but it's not the worst. It's hard to really get a good view. But the first thing we need to do is open the little ball valve right here and drain the fluid. So you can see I've got my 28 millimeter socket set up there. I don't recommend using a 12 point because there's too many stories of 12 point rounding off that 6 point nut. That's a 6 point nut, plastic nut, easy to strip with 12 point. Don't use 1 1/8. Everything on this truck, but I think the lug nuts are metric. So stick with metric and use the proper tool. So it sounds like it's finished draining down there. So let's go ahead and give it a crank and see what happens. These things are tight. I've got a little bit of a universal joint on there because you can't get right over it. But this is why I say don't try to do it with a 12 point. Listen to that. But it's okay because we got it now. Okay, that's good for now. Should be handy, and it is. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is pull this cap off and then change the O-ring out. Try not to knock off anything. What I did is blew all this out with my air hose first. And it comes off pretty easy. You can kind of just squeeze it with your finger. And I got the other one ready to go back on. When you slip this on, make sure you slip it all the way down, because that can cause you some grief. The cap won't make up all the way. Okay, that looks good. A little tight coming out. Let it drip a little bit there. Not bad. All right, that's seated. Double check my O-ring. Want to make sure that's all the way down. I don't think there's much you can do to keep this thing from being tight coming off, to be honest with you. They call for a 20 foot-pound torque on this thing. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go with the Marion Blair 20 foot-pounds or whatever it is. You can kind of tell when it seats. As long as it's turned relatively easy. It's not going to turn easy because it's plastic. It's one place plastic has no business. See, that's getting snug. That's why you need to have this O-ring all the way seated. Otherwise, you'll get kind of a false torque. That's pretty tight right there. Yeah, I'm good with that. We'll check it, make sure it ain't leaking, but I'm good with that. Okay, now we're going to purge the air out of it. So here's something that's good to know if you ever get water in your tank and you need to drain your tank. You can do it by cycling the ignition, but it's going to take you forever, and it's because you can only run the pump, I think, 8 seconds, something like that. So the easiest way, and you really don't have to pull this fuse 70 on this truck, 2014 on up to, what, 18? You don't have to pull it, but I do because I can't see inside the PCM, and just to be on the safe side, I pull it. But you really don't have to because the relay should be open on the PCM. So I'll pull that fuse 70 like I just did. It's between this 15 and this 25 right here. And it's labeled up here also, fuse 70. It's a fuel transfer pump. Actually, it's the fuel pump motor. There is a fuel transfer pump. You don't want to get that one mixed up. That looks like that's a 10 amp. But we're going to pull fuse 70, which is this one I just pulled right here. And I'm going to jump that side of it. This side would go to the PCM. That side would go to the pump itself to energize the pump. So that's the way we're going to do it. I've got the petcock on the filter still open. I'm going to go ahead and run a little bit of fluid through here with this thing called a power probe. You don't need it. You can just jump a piece of wire straight from your plus terminal battery over to this fuse and do it that way if you like. Okay, so you can hear it running now. And let me start this camera on the bottom. Okay, here we go. I can hear the pump pumping. I don't know if you hear that. I see lots of air. I think about a half a gallon will do it. She's starting to fill up nicely now. That was all air for about the first 15 seconds. Now I'm looking at solid fuel, so I'm gonna close my petcock and hopefully that'll be just about right. So we're finished pumping now. The main thing I wanted to show is that if you ever need to pump your tank, this is the way to go. Okay guys, I think this is going to do it for today. We're about done. Everything looks good, except that we're going to hop in the truck now and we'll reset the sensors and see if it starts. Okay, so there's our fuel filter right there. Okay, now we're going to confirm. There you go. Okay, so the fuel filters are reset. Now let's see if this thing will crank, huh? We'll see if that purging did any good. Usually if you purge it by cycling the ignition, it'll take you 5 or 6 cycles. So we'll see how many it takes this time. I don't expect it to crank the first time, but we'll see. Okay, that was close. Had to crank it a little more. All right, so
recording started.
The old Cummins sounds good. Let's go look at the look for leaks. And I do appreciate you guys watching my video as always. And until next time, adios.